Discerning news and some solutions for what's going on in the world. Are you ready for this, Tom?
Of course I'm ready, Teresa.
And we are missing our mate, Tiger. So we are doing it duo this week, but it just felt like there's a lot going on. And I know I've had some really good insights and some unique opportunities to talk to people that gave me some really good clarity on situations. So I thought that we would meet up without Tiger, unfortunately, and do a little sharing.
Yeah, and I think we're going to highlight today. So stick around and listen because we're going to talk about a couple of current events and things that are the news that's in the air, in the ether, so to speak, and then tune into spirit for solutions because the hits keep on coming. You know, if it's not one story, it's another. So we're going to kind of practically demonstrate how to work with spirit in these situations.
What if you didn't have to navigate uncertain times alone? What if you had a steady place to land, a place where your intuition is strengthened, not dismissed, where your spiritual questions are welcomed, and where growth feels grounded instead of overwhelming? Welcome to Reawaken. Reawaken is a monthly membership for people who know there's more awareness, more clarity, more connection, and who are ready to access it in a practical way. Inside, you'll receive monthly life regroupings to realign and refocus, ongoing tools to strengthen discernment, intuition, and emotional awareness. This isn't about escaping the world. It's about becoming steady within it. It's about learning to trust your inner compass. It's about moving from reaction to awareness, and it's about remembering who you are and walking forward with clarity. If you're ready to feel supported, aligned, and spiritually grounded, Reawaken is here. Join us and reawaken the part of you that already knows.
Yeah, and I think for like yourself, Tom, we have that perspective already. And so that's how you and I roll with stuff. But I noticed for myself that most people don't. Most people in the world don't. So just this past week, the last 2 weeks, especially since our last episode with Tiger, Iran was the hot topic, right? And it is still obviously very hot because it's still going on. So I have a friend who is Iranian, and she's got family over there in Tehran. And so when it first happened, I wanted to ask her, how are things going on? But I didn't. I can feel, I feel there was things going on. I didn't want to go there. So then recently I had an opportunity. She and I were together, and I just said, so how are things going and what's happening and her perspective of it. And it was quite interesting because she's a lovely, lovely woman, and she, is very down to earth and very I don't want to say naive, but naive in some ways on like how people really are around things. So one of the things she said to me was that she said, there are a lot of people who are, who are questioning, that is there an imminent threat with Iran? And she said to me, without even like a breath, are they kidding me? Iran is an imminent threat. She said that, the regime, and she kept saying the regime. So, and she said the regime, we knew people people living over there, that the regime had to go down, and that for the regime to go down, it would not be an easy situation. So they already knew this. And then come across, they were protesting in early March, and then, the horrific events that happened that really weren't broadcasted too much, honestly. There were some things, but not too much was said about how many people were hurt and what happened, because they closed down the news very quickly, or the way to get out the information was closed quickly. And she said this too. She said, I don't have connection. There was lack of connection at some points, but she did share with me that, during the protests and when the things went down and all the killings happened and things, that her sister was there and other people too. So she had a firsthand account of what had happened, and they ran into an alleyway and they got into a home, and there were still shots everywhere, but they, thank God, survived.
Wow.
Oh yeah, no, it was intense. And I said to her, well, I heard there's like 30,000. She goes, no, there's like 40,000 or more people. So it's been like the numbers have been growing and growing as far as how many people got
Yeah,
effective.
so I guess you're talking about the 40,000 protesters that were killed by the Iranian regime,
Yes.
and that you're, in summary, what I hear you saying is your contact or your friend, you're actually your friend
Uh-huh.
who's from there, who still has family there, who's lived there,
Mm-hmm.
gave you a perspective as to what really is going on there, and that how the regime is, they knew it was going to be a tough job to remove that regime. And so are we ready for the spiritual perspective on all that?
Sure, Tom. Why don't you share a spiritual perspective of what you pick up
Okay.
around that situation?
Two things came to mind as you were sharing. And I wanted to say that, you brought up a good point earlier, like the way most of us have been trained to react to these things is we assess something through our set of beliefs, which is another way of saying our concepts that we have about ourselves and our environment, or our emotions. And both are kind of intertwined, our plastic feelings, the ones that we've been programmed with. So as I relaxed and I tuned into the story, because my set of beliefs and my emotions go, oh my God, that's a big deal and that's horrible and et cetera, as most people would, And then I'm sure there's others who are going to go, well, that's probably not even true. And, if you're on one side of the political fence. So as I tune into spirit, one of the first thought that came to me is that, wow, and this is interesting perspective even for me, is the souls that live in Iran are finally evolving to a point where they're declaring their freedom and their independence. They're evolving through that situation. Because let's face it, I mean, from an American perspective or from a suburban American perspective, that's a horrible thing. I mean, sure, a couple people get hurt or killed in protest, but I mean, there's not a government that's massacring 40,000 people. And I think you were telling me some more, how they were hunting people down in hospitals and all kinds of things.
Oh, yeah. They were going into hospitals, killing doctors, nurses, and then killing the people who were still alive, who were at the protest, and then taking their bodies. It was just horrific.
So as I tune in, my normal, you might say my programmed reactions are like, yes, let's get them and let's, but as I tune into spirit, like get the bad guys and, take out the regime and that kind of thing. Like my emotions tend to go more there, and good justice will prevail kind of a thing, or let's free those people. But as I tune into spirit, I'll come back to what I was sharing earlier where, I've got that bigger picture perspective of those are souls who have incarnated. I can feel the feeling of it. Mm-hmm. And they're moving through that opportunity to really learn and grow around their personal freedom and liberty and all that. Having said that, I'm all for helping them to the extent that we can, but it's funny how that spiritual perspective just calms me down, that there's a direct choice by the soul to incarnate into that environment, and so they're getting something from it. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I totally feel that. And it's interesting because while all this has been going on, I'm always watching things on YouTube and exploring different things. And lately I've been exploring North Korea, which is obviously another, it was a communist country where, and there's a lot of things there that you just don't even know what goes on until people come out and then start sharing about what they experienced when they were there, which are horrific. I mean, just can't even contemplate. Mm-hmm. So for myself too, yeah, as you're mentioning about, souls incarnating in certain places, which we all have, right? I've been Chinese, I've been German, I've been this, I've been that, and we've all incarnated in different places throughout time to have these experiences. Mm-hmm. And the feeling I'm getting from spirit and the insights is that at this moment in time, all over the planet, this energy of freedom and breaking through the regimes and breaking through communism, breaking through whatever has been holding them back, there's like a wave. There's a wave that's happening. And so in understanding, as a collective that we are all one, and knowing that these souls are there or in that place to go through that, and we're in America to go through that, and they're in Australia to go through that, and wherever we're at on the planet, we're all set up in the perfect place to back what's going on in other places of the world.
Yeah, and what I'd like to highlight about what you shared is that as I watch you share, I go, oh, I can see she's getting the feeling, because I notice this calm comes over you. Of that bigger picture perspective, that spiritual perspective. And, like I say, my nature, or the way my personality is such that I want to go help those people, let's free them. But the truth of what is happening spiritually is that if there's enough souls in that environment of, say, Iran, or in that area, that are really ready to shift their level of consciousness and freedom, and shift from that learning experience that they're having of living under that kind of, what a great example to start really appreciating your personal liberties when you're under that kind of a scenario, is their energy as souls, they're going to attract the help. The help is going to come no matter what I think about it or not, or no matter what anyone else thinks about it. They're going to, the law of attraction is if enough of that energy, those people, those souls are ready, there will be, providence will move in. So for me, providence is just a word to describe that spiritual backing that shows up in a physical form, through people getting involved to help. So when the soul's ready and open and willing, help's going to show up.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because like my friend who's of a different generation. And so the younger generations are in a different place energetically and are recognizing that they're here for the change. And that's exactly what I was noticing when I was watching some of the reports on YouTube about North Korea. And I watched a couple people who had escaped there, and they are of the younger generation. And so it's interesting to get a feeling and a sense of, what we're all, and we talk about every week, what we're all feeling right now, this great sense of, of a change, of a flow, of energy shifting and different dynamics coming in, and that they're experiencing that too, but they're actually more physical going through it, like escaping North Korea, or, not getting killed when you're in Tehran, when, they're massacring 40,000 people in front of you. Like, there's different variations of how to work with the energy right now. And so really the insights I get is, what we can do on our end as a solution is to stay relaxed and just know that, and work with whatever, like you're saying, I want to move in and work. Well, okay, so that's what the military and, they're doing at the moment, right? In different variations, the air carriers and whatever's working over there. But from our place, like to get roused up and to be angry and fearful and demanding and that type of energy doesn't do the whole situation good. It actually stalls it. So to be more loving and more not judging and more, recognizing for yourself what awarenesses can I gather to give myself peace for what I've come to do in this moment of time really helps the collective, helps the whole.
Yeah, and the spiritual, ethic is really live and let live.
Hey, we've heard that before on here.
Yeah, and that's what comes to me. But live and let live often can say and allow souls to advance through their opportunities. So I'm also having that perspective of, and it's important that me as an individual work that way with people. Help people when they request the help or they need the help, as opposed to jumping in and saving them before they're ready. And what's interesting as a society is we seem to have, evolved through that. Like we realized in Iraq, for example, people go, well, I guess we learned about regime change, and many old souls or people who have that spiritual perspective or tune into their feelings go, I always felt that wasn't going to work, probably because we've tried it before. We've had lifetimes where or we've just tuned into the bigger picture of spirit, which, there's a feeling of, as a soul, nobody could do it for me. I have to get there myself. Having said that, we live within a framework in society where, we have those rules in place or structures in place, laws, regulations, so that we can best live and let live. And that's going to be a evolving kind of, back and forth and so forth, for people. But a lot of people feel more secure when they have a rigid structure. And then a lot of times more spiritual people, or people, when I say spiritual, they're just more aware of who they are as a soul, can live with less structure because they automatically, love thy neighbor. They automatically live and let live. They're automatically of service. They're automatically respectful because it feels better. It's more fulfilling. It's everything. It's more fun to be involved with positive, creative, loving energy that builds than be involved in something that's negative and spirals down.
Yeah, and I think that's a good thing to really bring forth, is to recognize that the spiritual part that can really, it can actually it can free us. I mean, having that awareness is very freeing, and I think that's what you're saying a minute ago when you could feel me relaxing into it, like I'm very relaxed with it. Now, of course, I'm not over there in the midst of it, right?
Yeah.
But I am in the midst of a lot of people in my day-to-day, movement through where I'm going, whatever I'm involved in at work or play or wherever, that I'm feeling a lot of what other people are picking up and sensing. And so the insight, another solution that I want to come up with today is around these stories, is finding things that help a person stay relaxed with what's going on. So, one thing lately too, besides watching the videos about North Korea, I've been watching a lot of videos about space and about the Voyager 1 and 2, satellites that are way out and beyond, our planet and our galaxy now. And so that has given me a fulfillment of that. There's just so much more out there than there is right here. And, but I am right here, right now. So I need to be grounded. And how do I work with the energy of being in this place and staying relaxed with it? And it comes down, for myself, it comes down to, working with our guidance. And that's, I guess, one of the things I want to bring up too, is like our Reawaken membership that we offer each month. And that's a great way to tune into the energy of the month, how to work with the philosophy of the month, how to work with the monthly class. And then we have a regrouping each month where we come together as like-minded people and just explore what's going on energetically this month and how have you been moving through it. And it's so amazing to come together with like-minded people as a community and being able to explore those topics and the energy that we're all feeling each month.
Yeah. Like I've shared before, that when I read some of the materials, even in the midst of these constantly changing stories. And, I want to say that I have a lot of feeling for people going through their challenges, whether it's the local family and somebody's got cancer, or it's people getting bombed in Iraq, or the collateral damage that occurs in Israel. I mean, when I tune into my sensitivity, my heart goes out to people. But one thing that you just did as you learned to tune into your guidance, and this is where these memberships come into play, is you learn to work more closely with your guidance so that you can tune into a different perspective than what you've been programmed with. And it's like I get little messages, perfect for me, one sentence or phrase, go, oh, yeah. And then my guidance can give me a little bit more insight. And so to be clear, like what we're talking about is getting key words and key phrases and, a direct two-way communication.
But building up that.
And helping kind of shed some of the concepts and habits and attitudes that aren't working for us anymore. But it's hard to shed them if I don't know what to replace them with, or if I'm not aware. Self-awareness is what we're about, self-discovery. It's not up to me to tell anybody, what the meaning is behind their experience. I can share a perspective, but they need to tune into their own awareness and become more, it's more fun. It's more on track. It's more in charge of being in the flow of your destiny, so to speak.
Yeah, and I think that another word that's popped into my mind too is trust. So I know a lot of people out there talk about being spiritual or awarenesses, but are they really trusting?
Yeah.
Do they really trust when an insight, a hunch, or an impression comes in, or like you're saying, a key word or a feeling, or whenever you gather some of those insights from spirit, are you trusting when you get them?
Yeah, what occurred to me, it's like when I'm aware of the key word for the month, and we have a philosophy that goes with that that's been, a lot of spirits channeled messages for us to be aware of, that in the midst of these stories that are happening, my personal direction is still, in the month that we're recording this, is play, and so what is,
right.
and
Yes.
having that fulfillment from just, having that lighthearted, having fun as I move through my service. One of the things I wanted to share was that as I watched you relax, and as I've experienced this myself, is when I get that insight from spirit, like, oh, it's a little bigger picture. It doesn't mean that I won't have opportunity to be of service to that situation. But if I'm calm, I can move forward with more positive energy, or more directly towards being of service, rather than caught in all the fluff and kind of stuff. And unfortunately, people, the intellect, and people like to manipulate us. They want to sell us something, or they want to keep our attention, and our little brains, do react to certain fears. We can get stimulated from it, and but the soul nature, when I balance those facts with because what's happening is, I really feel for people in Iran. I really feel for what's going on, but to what extent do I need to invest my energy? There needs to be an awareness. I may have opportunity. If I'm in the armed services, then I'd have opportunity to help with that. So, but it's more of a spiritual pivot point that helps me stay calm and relaxed.
Absolutely. So let's pivot into the next story, which we have some things that happened in America this weekend.
Okay.
So go ahead, and you want to share about this one?
The No Kings rallies occurred, and I find it interesting because we have a democratic process in this republic where we've elected officials, and now people are utilizing that to attack a personality, so to speak. And I always get a kick out of this because this is my intellect talking. This is my concepts of how the people. A phrase like "no kings." Well, I resonate with that. I resonate with the founding of America, and that purpose behind all that. Was to move away from that kind of a government, more towards self-government. And power of the people, kind of a thing. So, intellectually, that phrase "no kings" can stimulate. Like, I like it, right? But the feeling behind it is I'm feeling like, which is great. It's like, okay, I'm for no kings outside of me, but what is it really being used for? And so here, I find it disingenuous of people that are protesting. So now I want to ask you, Teresa. That's kind of some of my reactions I wanted to share about. So now I want to ask you, how do you feel? What do you tune into from spirit with that?
Well, it's interesting because the first impression I received when I started hearing about this happening this weekend is that a lot of people are reliving like their past incarnations
Hmm.
when they were ruled by a king and they didn't feel like they had any freedom. And so that was the very first impression, which I thought was quite interesting. I was like, wow, because I'm sure I've probably been there too, but it's like the soul, where is the soul in their lineage of experiences?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe I let that go 5 or 6 lifetimes ago, and some other people haven't, because maybe they're newer souls or they have experienced things in different ways. So it's quite interesting. That was the first impression I received.
Ooh.
What's your impression on that?
Yeah, as I feel into that, again, that perspective of, rather than judge people who are involved in no kings and say, oh, Jesus, or they don't know what they're doing. My feelings say, I'm glad there's some dissent. I'm glad that we're getting reminded that that's not the path that we want to go down here, the no kings. Also on, there's dissent within different political, groups. Like, well, one group is for this, like, let's say the left, part of the left is this way, part of the left is that way, part of the right is this way, part of the right is that way. And, for example, there's been a lot of talk about the fact that some of the more conservative commentators have said things about the Iran, war that is not, what some of the others on the right. And, I never mind that. Because I think free speech is such an important thing that it's great to hear somebody else's perspective. And the feeling that I tune into is that, in some ways, I'd rather have everybody united in the same, my reaction is like, we should all be united in whatever which way direction we're going to go in. Let's go in together. And there's some truth in that. But as I tune into it, what helps me relax is, instead of the shoulds and shouldn'ts, I go, oh, well, that's serving a purpose too. Remind us of, hey, let's not get caught in a forever war, for example,
Yeah, it's interesting. So I've been noticing on Facebook, social media, what is coming up to the top. And so I've had several people that I've noticed have gone to those rallies that I was like really kind of surprised. Like, whoa, that person went to the rally. Okay, cool. They're, like you said, they're obviously doing their free speech thing and going out and feeling, one with the many that are out there, screaming and doing their thing and protesting. I say screaming because, yeah,
They were.
If you see them on the thing, yeah, they're kind of, they're angry. And even though they said there's lots of love and there's, there's both sides to the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
But then I was also noticing.
Well, they're caught in their emotions for sure. If they're marching in an angry way, that's.
But see, it's their perspective because like on this one thing that I was reading on Facebook on this post, it said, we there was lots of love and lots of joy. And I'm thinking, well, maybe in like her perspective was right. But I mean, if you look at some other people, there's not a lot of love and joy in those signs are holding up. There's a lot of hatred and fear and whatever. But
boy, you really bring up, that's a great point to like tune into spirit a bit more on, because we hear both sides, like they're angry or, oh, there's love. And, I'm sure everybody relates to those stories of just the spectrum of what people are involved in. So as I tune into spirit, oh, wow, like people are going to experience that event or their involvement based on their level of consciousness. So if what that means to me, that's what I'd like to say, is I'm not pontificating here. I'm saying, well, what that means to me is I can feel my identity relax a little bit in my stomach, area, that chakra area, and go, oh, yeah, okay. For some of them, they're going to experience it more from that loving perspective, and others are moving through being angry, and it's all part of the evolving nature of the soul learning and growing.
yeah, and it's interesting too, because there was other people that I noticed on Facebook, and one gentleman wrote a thing about, what's going on around the world and how for years he had his head in the sand. And then he came up and he started getting more truth for himself. And I really related to that because that to me is part of the spiritual journey. Is like, I feel, we all are born and then we have our head in the sand. And then, we come up to go, okay, so what's a truth for me? And my truth may not be what your truth is or many other people's truths, but in him being able to recognize and to say that, I thought it felt to me like a real powerful expression of what he's moved through and how he now is, noticing for himself, again, it's whether right or wrong, that, this is a truth for him now because he's no longer head buried in the sand. What do you take on that one, Tom?
As I relax, as I'm more self-aware, I begin to notice, when I feel a little uncomfortable or a little out of balance, or I'm having emotional reactions to certain people or situations consistently. And even in my day-to-day life and people that I love and respect or work with, I notice I can get stimulated in a certain way. And what this means to me is not have my head in the sand, but go, okay, yeah, I'm feeling lesser than around this person. Why is that? Okay, I'm just practicing. My true nature is I'm one with all. There is no greater than or lesser than as a soul. We just have different levels of experience. So there's no reason. I don't need to, that's not my true nature, is to feel lesser than. So what do I truly feel like? But it's been such a habit to be around certain people that say, remind me of my father or remind me of my mother, that I would get stimulated into that feeling lesser than, or sometimes feeling greater than, like, well, I know more than they do. And, kind of an energy. So, often I say as a visionary, my first gift is vision. I can act through everything. I can look like I'm cool, calm, and collected and nobody knows what's going on, but I'm feeling one way or the other. So when I just relax and tune into my true nature with spirit, it's something I have to kind of re-practice because I have to relearn. I have to get back to who I really am. So it's great. It's being aware is noting that I've experienced this, and now I can practice solutions, or I can begin to go, deep breath guidance. What's the reality here? Or why am I putting pressure on myself in this situation? What's got me worked up? So just relax, slow down, or tune back into my true purpose. It takes a little bit of practice when I've been doing it for a lifetime, or lifetimes a different way,
Yeah, I think it takes actually probably a lot of practice, but but for myself, I recognize, and I know we've been talking lately, especially the last week or week and a half, that situations have been coming up for us that really make us look at, are we still triggered by that or not?
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of these news stories are, which especially the ones that we consistently were talking about for quite a long time and go on and on for, well, actually probably thousands of years, but we're only here for a little bit of time, is, am I still triggered by that? And that's how I notice, especially around Trump and some of the people that I know that absolutely despise and hate and whatever. Like I can feel in him, like, whenever he was first reelected again for the second time, how angry they were. And are they still that angry when they mention them? And some are, and some aren't. So all these situations that are playing out around us are just really learning opportunities to recognize for myself, is that still stimulating me? Or am I able to move past it, or am I a different place? Like we talked about that recently. I can't remember what was coming up with in our situation, but I said, my God, this happened and it didn't stimulate me. And you were going through something too. It's just interesting how, just something to take note as a solution too, for like just getting a bigger picture of where a person is in a situation, is how much is it triggering you or stimulating your emotions still?
Yeah, and I guess keep me from moving forward and having what I mean by that is just having the wonderful experience, like when I'm at in business of just that feeling of flowing and being of service and enjoying my environment and its surroundings and enjoying the fact that I've got something to do and I can be of service and this is cool stuff I work with. And I've worked at that, I've put a lot together over my lifetime to be in that place, this place at this time. And so, just, all we're really, let's pick on Trump is such a great example because people either love him or hate him kind of a thing. And, what I like about what you were sharing was I don't have to like what someone's personality is like or their behavior or the way they go about things. It's not my preference. It's not how I might want to do it. But I've got to just accept people where they're at. Like if they want to be stupid, I accept that. If they want to be ignorant, I accept that. If and I guess for myself, that starts with me just accepting myself that I might set myself up for experiences that I didn't really want to have. But boy, I can see, here's a simple one. I laid in bed for another 10 minutes. Oh no, now I'm under pressure for the next 2 hours. In fact, I probably set off the whole day to be under pressure by 10 minutes. So what would I rather do? Be 15 minutes early and relax or be under pressure? So why would I do something like that? Well, because, the thoughts in our head like, no, I'm going to stay in bed. What am I rebelling against? Anyway, I'm not trying to explain that whole situation. I'm just saying that for me, self-awareness, becoming less, keeping my head in the sand is just like, okay, I do that. And I still do that. Like it's still something that I do or I have to be aware of. So this week I was even thinking, lately I'm showing up like a little too under pressure, by the time I get to work. Really, I want to be there. This is really what happened for me this week. I need to get back to being there 15 minutes early. So my solution is to relax, ask my guidance, call my guidance close to back me so that I can stay relaxed. That's how I make this kind of thing practical.
Cool, Tom. So in the two stories we shared this week, what is the commonality that you get from both of those?
For me, it's every time we kind of do an episode, I realize the stories are going to be out there. It's just how planet Earth operates. And the more that I look to someone outside of me to help me stay calm, the more vulnerable I am. But if I if I have enough confidence that I'm here with a purpose, the only way I get that confidence is just relaxing, tuning into spirit, tuning back into who I really am. That's why people love to meditate and so forth. But you can do it at light speed. That's what we're doing here. We didn't prepare answers for these questions that we're coming up with. We just take a deep breath, relax, and we know how to mentally cleanse, and we recognize our spiritual helpers so that we can get those keywords and insights in a flash. And then I have to say, well, do I want to relax and stay relaxed and feel strong and confident? Or do I want to be nervous and on edge? I have a choice. Neither one is bad. It's just what works better for me. How can I be more of service to myself and others?
Yeah, and for myself, which you're going to ask me, right?
Teresa?
What, Tom?
What about you?
What about you?
I know you're going to shed some light on this because...
Well, it's just another week of some stories, some, energy that's highlighted around the planet or in America or somewhere to just help us and support us to get that next growth opportunity.
Yeah. And I always come back to, wow, planet Earth's the school of many levels of consciousness. That's my personal thought on it and feeling on it. And stay relaxed.
Prepare.
Stay positive.
So in recognizing what's going on, it's good for yourself to prepare and to be able to release, some of the maybe not so good feelings you have within you and finding ways to stay relaxed.
One final thing I wanted to say was that our purpose is to share different spiritual perspectives. You're sharing yours, I'm sharing mine. And from there, kind of, we welcome other people's perspectives as they tune into spirit to sort of, as I say, round out my picture of, what's happening. And like you mentioned, we have those meetings where people who are like-minded can say, yeah, all this is going on, but I can see the positive and share the positive and the highlights of what they're going through.
Absolutely. So we want to thank you so much for listening into another episode of Spiritual Perspectives, Discerning News. And we hope you gain some insights for yourself on how to stay relaxed and release any of that energy that might be building up inside of you as you see these stories and hear what's going on around the world, and preparing for moving through your life in a very relaxed way.
Sounds good.
So until next week, we'll see y'all soon. Cheers.
To keep the enthusiasm going, please like, subscribe, or comment below. We would love to hear from you.